Hey everyone, What If Fan here. Now moving on to another exciting part of What If Transmigrated as a Kanto gym leader. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 421, You Didn't Go This Hard Against Dylan. Winden City, Gaylor Region. Dylan and his group had returned here once again, but this time, not by plane. Even by air, the journey from Hoenn. Winden City, Gaylor Region. Dylan and his group had returned here once again, but this time, not by plane. Even by air, the journey from Hoenn to Gaylor took close to 10 hours. This time, Dylan had borrowed the aid of Hoopa Unbound once again and had the mischievous Pokemon open a ring portal. This power is seriously insane. As she stepped through the spatial ring, Nemona's eyes widened at the towering buildings of a whole new region. Then, she turned her starry-eyed gaze to Hoopa. Yeah, spatial abilities like this are just incredible, Steven marveled. Even with teleport, psychic types can't cross this kind of distance. They were crossing entire regions in seconds. Hee Hoopa is amazing, right? Totally amazing. Nemona nodded emphatically, making Hoopa beam with pride. One person, however, still hadn't shaken off the sting of defeat. Wallace was unusually quiet and downcast. After all, he'd lost in the very first World Cup tournament match. And not to another champion, but a rising Elite Four member from Kanto. Yes. Wallace was taking this hard. Champion Dylan, Champion Steven, Champion Cynthia, Champion Gita, welcome to Gaylor. Soon after, the group was met by Secretary Olena, who gave a polite nod. The chairman has been expecting you. She gestured toward the massive Rose Tower. Dylan, however, caught an odd, almost resentful flicker in her gaze. He quickly found out why. Ho ho Dylan, welcome back to Gaylor. And to the rest of you as well. At the top of Rose Tower, Chairman Rose stood to greet them with his usual warm smile. Leon grinned broadly, scanning the group with bright eyes. Leon was always eager for a good battle, especially when it came to facing strong trainers. Everyone exchanged polite greetings. While Dylan and Leon were both champions, Chairman Rose's status within Gaylor was on par with any regional champion. So, Leon feeling confident about tomorrow's match? Dylan teased as they settled into the lounge. I'm looking forward to battling champion Iris. And this time, I'll be giving it my all. Leon's grin turned wry. Thanks to you, Dylan, Gaylor's rep hasn't exactly been stellar lately. Our local trainers have been catching a lot of flack. Dylan scratched his head sheepishly. Cynthia and Gita chuckled. Yeah, that last match. Dylan did kind of crush Leon a little too hard. Before that, Leon had been undefeated in official matches. But then Dylan swept him flawlessly. The backlash had been intense. Gaylor's pride, their unbeatable champion, had been zeroed. To make matters worse, that defeat had dropped Leon to 6th in the World Cup rankings. Rose had once aimed to secure a top 3 slot for Leon, but after that wipeout, he didn't even have the face to argue for it. He believed in Leon's strength. But after that loss, trying to save face in front of other chairmen just made it worse. You couldn't just say, well, your champions wouldn't have done any better, without sounding like a sore loser. I actually wanted to challenge Champion Gita next, but then Champion Iris beat me to it, Leon shrugged. He hadn't expected to be the very first champion to get challenged in the tournament. Great. Guess everyone figured he was the easy one. You're always welcome to challenge me, Gita smiled, composed and poised. She didn't take offense. The World Cup was built on challenges and rankings. There were only 8 Masters-ranked trainers. Someone had to be first. Iris, now ranked 7th, was a new face among champions, but that didn't mean she was weak. Still, Iris is in for a rough one, Dylan muttered. Now. I haven't won yet. Leon shook his head humbly. He never underestimated his opponents. Iris had earned her title by beating Alder. That was no small feat. Plus, this match would be Gaylor's shot at redemption. If he won, it had to be clean, decisive. And if he lost, well, that was unthinkable. After 2 back-to-back defeats, Gaylor's reputation might not recover. Leon wouldn't allow that to happen. He had a duty to be strong, and to make Gaylor stronger. Well then, we'll see how tomorrow goes. Dylan offered a knowing look. Internally, he was already praying for Iris. She'd only just become champion, and now she was facing Leon? May Arceus protect her. After a quick tour of Winden led by Rose himself, the group retired to the villa the chairman had arranged. The next day, Winden Stadium. This was the same arena where Dylan had fought Leon in the championship finals. Today, the spotlight belonged to Iris and Leon. Once again, the stadium was filled to bursting. Despite lingering doubts, Galarians were loyal to their champion and they loved a good battle. Let's go Iris! Smash that ranking and take Leon down. Leon's not losing this time. Let's go, I wanna see blood. Why is anyone even backing Leon? The guy got swept by Dylan, lol. Say that again, you punk? Pfft, please. Your champion got zeroed. Iris is gonna crush him. Wow. Big talk from the region whose legendaries got kidnapped by Dylan. Even your Res Hiram became his ride. The livestream comments section had turned into an all-out war. Gaylor versus Unova. Other regions just sat back and devoured popcorn. As the announcer called out their names, Iris and Leon entered the stadium and took their places. Leon gave Iris a respectful nod. This was still a match between professionals. Whatever the netizens were saying didn't matter. Reputation was earned on the battlefield, not online. Sigh. That girl. I told her not to rush in like this. Up in the stands, Alder pressed a hand to his forehead. Beside him were Anne, Rosa, and Hilda, all there to cheer on Iris. Alder had planned to take things slow in the tournament. But Iris? She believed champions should blaze trails, and so she boldly declared her challenge, eager to earn recognition for Unova. You know that's just how Iris is, and smiled. Besides, she's strong. Give her some credit. If he didn't use Res Hiram, and wasn't even sure he could beat her. The problem is who she challenged, Alder said grimly. Wait, but didn't Leon get swept by Dylan? May blinked. Yeah. Because Dylan is Dylan, Anne added with a strange look. His team was insane. I still don't understand how he put that lineup together. Plus, Gaylor's really eager to reclaim their honor, Anne continued. Leon needs to win cleanly this time. So Iris walked right into a trap, huh? May's expression soured. Leon's gonna go full throttle, Rosa said. It's the only way to restore Gaylor's image. Well, only if he can beat Iris. May still had hope. She and Iris were close, and she believed in her friend. Let's hope so, Alder muttered. Otherwise, Unova's gonna be the clown of the world. The referee announced the rules. The match began. Leon got first move. His lead Pokemon? Rillaboom. Gaylor's grass starter and a key member of his team. Iris's first Pokemon, Haxorus. Dragon vs. Grass, technically a favorable match for Iris. But under Leon's command, Rillaboom closed the distance, sidestepped Fire Punch, slammed Haxorus in the neck with Hammer Arm, followed with Acrobatics, and finished with Earthquake. A clean, devastating combo. Haxorus was down. The stadium froze. Then exploded in cheers. This was Leon's home turf, after all. Iris stood stunned. Haxorus, return. She recalled her Pokemon, eyes narrowing. How is he this strong? She was rattled. She'd been caught off guard, sure, but that combo was lethal. This Rillaboom wasn't just strong. It was terrifying. She sent out Archeops next. High speed, high attack. But Rillaboom baited a move, tanked a hit, and countered with Focus Punch and another acrobatics. Archeops fainted. Third, Aggron. Rillaboom landed Grass Knot plus Earthquake. Down. Fourth, Hydreigon. Leon Gigantamaxed Rillaboom to take it down. Fifth, Lapras. Wounded, panting, but Rillaboom still held on and defeated it. Steven, Dylan, and the others were stunned. That was 5 knockouts. From one Pokemon. If she'd waited until year's end, Iris might have stood a better chance, Dylan said softly. Not that he was surprised. Classic Leon. In the anime, his Rillaboom one-shot 4 of Diantha's Pokemon. Now, Iris was facing a 1 vs 5. Leon really is strong, Geeta murmured. What blows my mind is that Dylan zeroed this Leon. I wonder if Iris is going to get swept, Wallace perked up. Watching someone else suffer? Strangely soothing. That depends on whether Leon lets Rillaboom rest, Cynthia's eyes gleamed. In the stream and forums, Galar fans were going wild. Keep it comin', baby. Who's the weakest region now, huh? Leon might not beat Dylan, but he's still unstoppable. Forget Diantha, could Cynthia beat him? On the field, Iris stood frozen. Her final Pokemon in hand. That Rillaboom looked worn down, but still dangerous. She clenched her teeth. Bro, you didn't fight Dylan like this. Why you gotta go full throttle on me? Chapter 422, They Be Champion. As expected, there's nothing wrong with Leon. Elsewhere in the crowd, Milo sighed in relief beneath his straw hat. Yeah. The problems die. As expected, there's nothing wrong with Leon. Elsewhere in the crowd, Milo sighed in relief beneath his straw hat. Yeah. The problem's Dylan, Nessa agreed, arms crossed and expression firm. The brutal way Dylan had crushed Leon in their match had shaken the entire Galar Gym leader corps. They had all questioned themselves, was Galar just weak? But today's match made one thing clear, Leon was not weak. Dylan was simply terrifying. Leon's my eternal rival, after all, Raihan grinned, lounging back with his hands behind his head, legs swinging confidently. No average champion stands a chance against him. Word is that Elite Four Giovanni used to be Kanto's strongest gym leader. You feeling confident, Raihan? Gordy teased. The Earthshaker, huh? Sounds fun, Raihan bared his teeth. After this match, he'd head to Kanto immediately. Tomorrow was his World Cup battle against Giovanni. Before Dylan came along, Giovanni was considered the strongest gym leader in Kanto. And Raihan? The strongest in Galar. If Galar did have an Elite Four system, Raihan would undoubtedly be its top member. Well, maybe not. Because the strongest trainer in Galar after Leon was actually Gloria. Yeah, Raihan knew full well, that sweet-faced girl was a monster of talent. Don't go crawling back after getting stumped, Gordy jabbed again. Ha! If that Giovanni guy can beat me, he's earned it. Raihan shrugged. He could take a loss. Not that he expected to lose. Back on the battlefield, the match was ending. Iris had sent out her ace, Haxorus. The pure dragon type evolved from Axu was formidable. And her undisputed trump card. Leon paused, then didn't withdraw his heavily wounded Rillaboom. Leon was just too kind. Alder exhaled in relief. If Leon had swapped out Rillaboom, Iris would have been swept a full 6-0. But Leon, in his own way, still gave her an out. Rillaboom gave up its head, so to speak, and was defeated. Leon's second Pokemon, Dragapult. And even though Iris fought with everything she had, her Haxorus stood no chance. That Dragapult was even stronger than Rillaboom. Haxorus is unable to battle. Dragapult wins. The referee raised his flag. All 6 of Iris's Pokemon are unable to battle. Leon defends his title. Iris stood frozen, eyes locked on her fallen partner. She'd lost. The stadium erupted with deafening cheers. Woo woo! Leon! 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 He's back! He's finally back! He might not be number 1 anymore, but I'm still yelling it, Leon is number 2. Hold on now, our Stevens ranked 2nd. That spot's his. Lance fans here too. He ain't giving it up either. Joke of the day, Dylan showed the whole world how to beat your boy Lance. Cough cough, this is Rika of Jato's Elite Four speaking. Gotta disagree, I think my teacher is still number 2. The internet instantly spiraled into debates over who the second strongest in the world truly was. Told you, Dylan nudged Wallace, pointing toward the dazed Iris on the field. If you'd challenged Leon, that would have been you. Classic defeated CG. Even as a champion, once the gap became clear, the crash was hard. Especially for a proud, talented girl like Iris. But Dylan knew she'd bounce back, probably stronger than ever. Still, catching up would take time. Doesn't make much difference, Wallace mumbled. Blue trashed me too. Blue specifically countered your team. Everyone knows your lineup. But Leon? That was just raw power, Dylan replied. He's one hell of a trainer, Steven added, stroking his chin. He was already mentally strategizing against Rillaboom and Dragapult. Planning was one thing. Facing Leon in real time? That was a different beast. Leon's match with Iris added a new fire to the global discussion. No one had expected this much strength from a guy who'd been swept by Dylan. And everyone knew Leon could have swapped out Rillaboom to complete a 6-0. But he didn't. He gave Iris a shred of dignity. That only made people ask a more pressing question. If Leon is this strong, how terrifying must Dylan be to have swept him? As the debate grew, attention soon turned to another match. The Galar Storm of Dragons, Raihan, versus Kanto's top Elite Four member, Giovanni. It wasn't a Masters 8 matchup, but in the digital age, any fight between top 20 trainers had insane hype. Indigo Plateau. Uncle, don't embarrass Kanto's Elite Four, okay? Beat that loudmouth good. Blue leaned back with his leg crossed, looking as smug and cocky as ever. Ha! Storm of Dragons. Giovanni chuckled, casting a glance at Raihan's profile on his phone. That was his title. Didn't matter. Giovanni sipped his tea with serene confidence. No matter who the opponent was, he wouldn't lose. After all, he was Giovanni. And this time, his son, Silver, would be in the stands watching. Giovanni was going to show him what a father could do. Red stayed quiet, scrolling through the World Cup app to pick his next challenge. He'd have started his own match already if not for wanting to watch Blue and Giovanni battle. Why do I feel like I'm the odd one out here? Leaf muttered, filing her nails. She wasn't too invested in rankings. As long as she kept her current spot, she was satisfied. For the record, Leaf was currently ranked number 20. She wasn't slacking, just had other priorities. Like, what to name her and Dylan's future kid. She glanced over at Dylan, who was peacefully napping on Lily's lap, enjoying an e-pillow. Leaf puffed her cheeks. Stupid man. You and Lily aren't even blood related. Have some boundaries, will ya? Lily, blissfully unaware, continued gently stroking Dylan's hair. 1 p.m., Indigo Stadium. Every seat was filled. No surprise. Giovanni was wildly popular in Kanto not just as a gym leader, but now as an Elite Four member. And today, a Galar trainer was challenging their top-ranked elite. Of course the whole region showed up. After the MC's introduction, Giovanni stepped into the arena, dressed sharp in his signature black suit, exuding calm dominance. Across from him, Raihan. One hand in his pocket, the other snapping selfies with his Rotom phone. Raihan loved life and loved posting about it. His social media was flooded with photos and battle clips. Even though he got mocked for his 10 consecutive losses to Leon, he never let it bother him. The guy had thick skin. Yo, mister. Giovanni, looking forward to this. Raihan flashed a bright grin and waved. Outside of battle, he was friendly and easygoing on the surface, at least. Likewise, Giovanni replied coolly. They say you specialize in ground types, huh? Funny, I've got a little experience with those myself. Raihan's smile widened, flashing teeth. Hope you're ready to go all out. I'm kinda strong, you know? He couldn't imagine losing. Sure, Kanto's Elite Four were famous, but he wasn't worried. He'd heard that even the third-ranked Kanto Elite Four member, Blue, had just crushed Wallace. But whatever. Giovanni used ground types. Raihan knew how to deal with those. And besides, ground types would never beat dragons. I hope you take this seriously, Mr. Raihan. It'd be a shame to send you back to Galar looking like a fool. Giovanni's tone was calm, but the confidence behind it? Ice cold. Oh. Raihan's eyes sparkled. Interesting guy. The referee stepped in to explain the match rules. The scoreboard's arrow began to spin. Now that's what I'm talking about. Blue grinned. That's the spirit Kanto's Elite Four should have. No pushovers. No apologies. Just pride. Blue was loving it. What, you thought anyone could compare to Kanto's crew? Please. Frankly, Blue thought Kanto deserved 4 slots in the Masters 8. Not 5, Leaf didn't count. Sure, she was strong. But her heart wasn't in it. All she ever thought about was Dylan. No big deal though. Dylan number 1. Himself number 2. Giovanni number 3. Red could scrape by at number 4. That was plenty. Let the world see Kanto's power. Who do you think will win? Wallace asked curiously. Wallace and the others were currently in Kanto 2. No scheduled matches for them today, and with the tournament in full swing, regional travel was frequent. Raihan's strong, Leon said cheerfully, arms folded. Naturally, he was rooting for his friend. Hey, Leon. What's the most Pokemon Raihan's ever knocked out in a battle against you? Dylan asked casually. Raihan's power level was hard to pin down. According to his league card, if Raihan went to another region, he'd be champion. No doubt, he was champion level. Also from his card, though he's lost to Leon 10 times, he's defeated more of Leon's Pokemon than any other trainer. Sure. But considering he challenged 10 times, that stat didn't exactly impress. The real question, how many of Leon's main team had he ever defeated? Best showing? Leon thought for a moment. Maybe 2. You held back, didn't you? Dylan asked. Leon didn't reply. But everyone knew the answer. When Leon wanted to enjoy a battle, he had to hold back. Then let's see how many of Giovanni's team Raihan can take down, Dylan smiled. Champion in another region? Sorry, buddy. Every single member of Kanto's Elite Four could be a champion anywhere else. Chapter 423, Who Dares Challenge Kanto's Elite Four? Let's see how many Pokemon Raihan can take down from Giovanni's team. When Dylan said this, Leon, Steven, and Cynthia were briefly stunned. Let's see how many Pokemon Raihan can take down from Giovanni's team. When Dylan said this, Leon, Steven, and Cynthia were briefly stunned. What did he mean by that? It wasn't hard to understand, but the implication was, Uncle Giovanni is really strong. Super impressive, actually. Before Big Brother came along, the only one in Kanto who could rival Champion Lance was Uncle Giovanni. Lily smiled sweetly, her tone full of pride. After all, Kanto was her home now. He's that strong? Wallace was surprised. He hadn't heard much about Giovanni before. Raihan, ranked number 14 on the Ultra Ball leaderboard, was now officially challenging Giovanni, ranked number 13. While this battle didn't have the same global attention as yesterday's clash between Leon and Iris, it was still a high-profile match. One was the Storm of Dragons from Galar, said to be champion tier in any other region. The other was the most formidable member of Kanto's Elite Four. Naturally, the match drew attention. Plus, the Indigo Plateau Arena now supported Dynamax energy zones, meaning Raihan could use his signature strategy too. Worth noting, in the Sword/Shield games, Raihan's ace Duraludon didn't have an evolution. But in the Scarlet/Violet DLC, Duraludon gained an evolved form, Arcaludon. In this world, Raihan had naturally chosen to evolve his Duraludon into Arcaludon, since it was much stronger in battle. This meant losing access to Gigantamax Duraludon, but honestly, Dylan thought that was a good thing. After all, who in their right mind would use Gigantamax Duraludon? That thing was so janky even a stray dog wouldn't touch it, except Raihan. Giovanni sent out his lead, Great Tusk, a powerhouse Dylan had gifted him. Giovanni truly loved this Pokemon. He'd initially considered raising an Iron Treads, but after bonding with Great Tusk, he never looked back. From any angle, Great Tusk was outstanding. It had already been powerful when Dylan gave it to him, and now it had become a core part of Giovanni's main team. Raihan, seeing Great Tusk, froze mid-throw with Coalossal's Pokeball in hand. Paradox Pokemon and Ultra Beasts were well known in trainer circles by now, and Paradox Pokemon had two possible abilities. For past forms, Photosynthesis, for future forms, Quark Drive. The former was boosted by Sun, the latter by electric terrain. And Great Tusk? You could tell from its design it was clearly a past form. Raihan may be called the Storm of Dragons, but in truth, his real strength is in weather teams. He's trained extensively to win in any environment. Seeing Raihan silently withdraw his Pokeball, Dylan chuckled. That's right, despite his title, Raihan was more of a weather master. His team even included 2 different weather setters. Crazy. Clearly, Raihan had been planning to open with Coalossal's drought ability and set up Harsh Sunlight. But that would have directly boosted Great Tusk via Photosynthesis. So he had no choice but to put Coalossal away. You sure know Raihan well, Leon noted in surprise. You're right. He definitely wanted to open with drought. But using it against Great Tusk would have been a huge disadvantage. Leon understood Raihan. After all, they'd battled 10 times. He knew him. Big Brother's great at weather teams too, but why doesn't he use Dragonair like Champion Lance? Lily asked curiously. Dragonair was one of the best weather setters among dragons. It could freely shift the climate. It's not the same, Lily. Not everyone can train a Dragonair to the level Lance has. Steven shook his head. He still remembered the Goldenrod battle, where Lance's 2 Dragonair displayed incredible strength. He was genuinely impressed. Exactly. Most Dragon-type Pokemon only reach their full potential in their final evolution, especially late bloomers like Dragonite. Cynthia nodded in agreement. While Dragonair does have the rare ability to control weather, its base stats aren't all that impressive. Sure, there are exceptions who can raise it to great heights. But it takes tremendous effort. Compared to that, using other Pokemon with built-in weather abilities is just more efficient. Dratini were rare, but Raihan certainly had the resources to get one. Still, why bother? Dragonair's weather control was nice, but was it worth dedicating a main team slot? That was debatable. And training a Dragonair to be as strong as a Dragonite? Not exactly easy. That's why most trainers prefer high base stat Pokemon. Stronger stats equals higher natural ceiling, and with training, they get even stronger. I see, Lily nodded thoughtfully. Meanwhile, the battle had begun. Raihan led with Sandaconda, a ground type. His other weather setter was Gigalith, but Great Tusk resisted rock moves. And Sandstorm wouldn't help much here. That Sandaconda looks weird, Lily murmured. It was basically a huge sand snake, coiled into a spiral, hence the name. Beep. Sandaconda, ground type. Sand snake Pokemon. Ability: Sand Spit. Moves: Sand Tomb, Coil, Slam, Dig, Glare, Stomping Tantrum. Dex entry: it coils its body in this unique way to maximize the efficiency of sand ejects from its sand sacs. It looked powerful. Lily stared at the Rotomdex description, wondering how it would perform in battle. The match began. Giovanni may be known as the Earthshaker, and people might think of Earth-type strategies as solid, defensive, and unshakable. And while his tactics were indeed steady, he was no slouch when it came to offense. Great Tusk was a brute. It charged in with rapid spin, closing distance fast. Then, BAM. A head-on clash of high horsepower versus high horsepower. Great Tusk launched Sandaconda off the field with sheer force, shocking Raihan. The difference in power was obvious. Then Great Tusk spun rapidly, ice shard glinting in the air as it formed a freezing rapid spin. Two ice-coated attacks crashed into Sandaconda. Sandaconda collapsed. Easy win. Wha? Told you. Who dares challenge Kanto's Elite Four? Giovanni, you're amazing. That was clean. That Great Tusk is gorgeous, I'm drooling, bros. Storm of Dragons? Champion in another region? Sorry, this region's built different. Giovanni OP. The chat was going wild with Kanto fans. Maybe they were nervous before the match, but now? Giovanni gave them confidence. From that first clash, it was clear the strength gap wasn't small. Impressive, looks like Raihan's in for a rough day. From the VIP box, Chairman Rose smiled wryly. He had hoped Raihan would at least match Giovanni's pace or hold out longer. But now, even if Giovanni wasn't as strong as Leon, he was close. Or maybe they were equals. Kanto really is full of talent, Chairman Goodshow. Rose turned to the elderly Kanto chairman beside him. He couldn't help but feel a bit envious. Kanto's Elite Four included all young prodigies besides Giovanni. And with Blue already beating Wallace, their strength was unquestionable. Now Giovanni, the top among them, was showing his full might. Ah, you're too kind. Goodshow was beaming. This feels amazing. Absolutely amazing. There are some promising kids too. I wonder if they'll be joining the World Cup soon. He spoke modestly, referring to Dylan's disciples, Celine, Silver, and Yellow. Goodshow had figured it out: if Dylan accepts a student, they're a prodigy. Celine was low profile, and while he knew she was strong, he hadn't been able to sneak her into the rankings. She'd have to earn it herself. Silver and Yellow weren't officially trainers yet, they still needed to start their journeys. Rose. He offered a polite, awkward smile. Even he wasn't sure what to say. Meanwhile, Giovanni's Great Tusk had already taken down Raihan's Flygon. Rose didn't need to watch anymore. If Raihan could avoid a full team wipe, that would be a victory in itself. Giovanni was absolutely a final boss-level opponent. In this entire tournament, only Leon might be able to go toe-to-toe with him. Oh, by the way, Chairman Rose, Dylan mentioned something, and I'm unsure. What's your take? Goodshow sipped his tea while enjoying his Star Elite's performance. He couldn't change the World Cup rules on his own, he'd need input from the other regional chairmen. Go ahead. Rose perked up. Well, the original plan is: at the end of the year, the Masters 8 are set. Then they face off in a random bracket to decide the world's strongest. Rose nodded. That was indeed the current format. But, isn't 8 a bit too few? You're suggesting increasing the final round's participants? Rose began weighing the pros and cons. Masters 8 was supposed to mean the top 8 trainers in the world. But now that so many powerful trainers were emerging across all regions, 8 just felt tight. And the competition would be brutal. Goodshow wanted to open the bracket. Dylan's idea, but Goodshow agreed. Yes. I think it could work, Rose smiled. More finalists meant more Galar representation. Galar had a lot of champions: Leon, Gloria, Mustard, Raihan. If more made it into the finals, Galar would shine. We'd have to divide the final bracket, a qualifying round for the Masters 8, then a final showdown for world number 1. Sounds great. Let's bring it up with the others after the match. The two chairmen whispered quietly as the battle raged on. Meanwhile, Raihan was done. He'd used 5 of his main team just to wear down Great Tusk. He finally sent out Arkaluden, Dynamaxed it, and defeated Great Tusk. Giovanni let him have it, it was a courtesy. Then Giovanni said, "You've used your ace, so I should respond in kind," and sent out Kangaskhan. Mega Evolved Kangaskhan. Beep Kangaskhan, Mega Evolution, Normal Type, Parent Pokemon. Ability, Parental Bond. Moves: Outrage, Reversal, Fake Out, Sucker Punch, Fire Punch, Ice Punch. Dex entry: its child rapidly matures due to Mega Evolution energy. Their coordinated attacks are formidable. And then. There was no then. Raihan could only watch as the two Kangaskhan, one big, one small, rushed Arkaluden from both sides. Fists flying like a blur. Block one. The other hit. Dodge one. The other landed. Raihan was in shock. This was 1v1? What kind of busted Pokemon brought its kid to a fistfight? Wasn't Giovanni supposed to be a ground-type specialist? Why the hell was his ace a normal type? Chapter 424, Steven, you're the lucky guy. Arkaluden is unable to battle. Mega Kangaskhan wins. All 6 of Challenger Raihan's Pokemon are unable to battle. The challenge ends in failure. The referee announced the final result. Though his voice remained composed, the excitement and joy in his eyes were impossible to hide. He was a local Kanto ref, after all. Giovanni had defended the dignity of being Kanto's top Elite Four member, of course he was thrilled. Whoa! With that announcement, the entire Indigo Plateau erupted into deafening cheers. Giovanni! Giovanni! The chanting, so full of passion and reverence, swept through the arena like a wave. That's the power of the home crowd. Giovanni wore a calm smile, but as the crowd shouted his name, the curve at the corner of his lips deepened. Though he wouldn't openly admit it, Giovanni was well aware of the pride swelling inside him. Having thousands scream his name in admiration and awe, it was a kind of thrill and satisfaction he'd never felt during his time in Team Rocket. Meanwhile, in a shaded corner of the stadium, 3 figures watched the scene with complicated expressions. If Archer and the others knew the boss is now a national idol, what kind of face do you think they'd make? Surge's rough face twisted into something unreadable. Koga. Sabrina. They'd probably think I'd gone nuts, Surge scratched his head. Honestly, this felt like a dream. He'd once felt pretty guilty, after all, he had been talked into returning as Vermilion City's gym leader by Jenny, turning over a new leaf. But it was only after that Surge learned, the boss himself had already been recruited by the Kanto League. What kind of twist was that? Since then, Surge hadn't contacted Giovanni in a long time. He genuinely didn't know how to face him. He hadn't spoken to Koga or Sabrina either, despite them all being former Rocket executives. Though they'd been re-added to the gym leader group chat, Surge hadn't said a word in there since. Once a problematic figure, he kept his head down. It was Officer Jenny's idea for the gym leaders to come watch Raihan's challenge match, treated like a day off. And so, the 3 former Rocket executives were together again. No matter where they stood now, they shared a common past. So we were in prison for nothing. I ate jail food for months, Surge grumbled. Koga. Don't lump me in with you two. I've always been the Saffron gym leader, Sabrina said coldly. Surge and Koga blinked at her. Problem? Sabrina gave them a cool glance. Oh. So just because she didn't get exposed and didn't serve time, she's suddenly clean and above them, huh? Surge and Koga exchanged a glance and fell silent. Technically, yeah, she wasn't wrong. Either way, we're all starting over, Koga finally said in a low voice. There's no boss anymore. I'm not a Rocket exec now. Having returned to the Fuchsia gym, Koga had realized he preferred being a clean, normal person. He didn't want anything to do with evil organizations anymore. He still had a younger sister. A daughter. He wasn't alone. I mean, this world championship thing is pretty nice, Serge grinned. Sabrina, I heard you applied to train in Unova? What's that about? Though they weren't exactly close as colleagues, their relationship wasn't bad either. Sabrina frowned slightly, a rare expression of hesitation crossing her face. A talent scout contacted me, said my look would suit acting in dramas or films. Her voice was soft, but Serge and Koga were seasoned trainers, of course they heard her. Koga. You're joking, right? Serge looked stunned. The boss is now Kanto's top Elite Four, and Sabrina, the human iceberg, wants to become an actress? What even is this world? Problem? Sabrina's eyes flashed with blue psychic light as she stared at him. You're really beautiful, Sabrina. It'd be a waste if you didn't become a star. Serge's hair stood on end. He forced a smile. This psycho woman hadn't changed one bit. With her unstable temper and psychic powers, Serge had always kept his distance. I want to try. I want to explore a new life. Sabrina didn't press the matter, and her gaze shifted back to Giovanni on the field. Team Rocket was over, Giovanni had told her that himself. She understood, that chapter was closed. Koga and Serge said nothing. Maybe it was time to try something new. But weren't they forgetting something? Serge scratched his head. Giovanni's battle with Raihan had ended, and everyone who watched the match came to the same conclusion. Just like Leon versus Iris, it had been a one-sided sweep. Giovanni was far stronger than Raihan. If he hadn't purposefully left Great Tusk in play, Raihan would have been cleanly swept. No one expected Giovanni to be that strong, but then again, he was the top of Kanto's Elite Four. And now, the world knew Giovanni's ace, Mega Kangaskhan. As for the fact that his ace wasn't even a ground type? No one cared. Who says you can't be a ground specialist if you stand on the ground? Don't be a stickler. For all they knew, Kangaskhan's Terra type was ground anyway. The opening matches of the World Championship had reached a crescendo. And after Giovanni defeated Raihan, several big announcements flooded the trending list. Kanto's Elite Four member Red challenges Kalos champion Diantha, ranked number 9. Johto champion Lance challenges ranked number 4, Diantha. Ranked 22 Paldea champion level Nimona challenges rank 16, Mustard. Ranked 27 Johto Elite Four member Karen challenges. The list went on and on, so fast, no one could keep up. Clearly, Red, Blue, and Leaf had just kicked things off. With their matches done, the World Championship was truly on fire. Even though regional events were still ongoing, they couldn't even compare in terms of popularity. That's the allure of the World Championship, a global spectacle. Regional tournaments just couldn't hold a candle. So, none of you are going to challenge anyone? Dylan asked, curious. Not yet. Steven and Cynthia are both strong opponents. I need to prepare carefully, Diantha answered with a graceful smile. I'll need to be fully ready as well, Cynthia nodded. Who would I even challenge? Steven looked helpless. He was ranked second. Who could he challenge? He couldn't go after someone ranked below him. Challenge Dylan, Steven. A real man doesn't back down from a fight. Wallace clapped his friend on the shoulder, full of righteous energy. Of course, if you ignored Wallace's smug, gloating expression, maybe Steven would have believed him. Steven's face was deadpan. Seems I overestimated you, Steven, Wallace sighed dramatically. Even I had the guts to challenge Dylan. Yet you, my best friend, would rather cower? Very well. He trailed off, watching Steven's expression. Cynthia and Diantha looked, deeply amused. Why aren't you reacting? Wallace blinked as Steven continued to stare at him with dead fish eyes. What kind of reaction do you want? Steven replied flatly. Wallace, less than sign. But you're right. If I let fear stop me, that's not like me at all. Steven stroked his chin. He was Steven Stone, after all. Oh? So you'll challenge me, Steven? Dylan brightened. Of course, Steven said with a smile. But not in the World Championship. I want to challenge you at the Rota Gym. Smart. If he challenged Dylan in the championship, he'd be up against whatever monster lineup Dylan felt like using. What if Dylan got bored and pulled out Dialga or Kyurem? No thanks. Steven wasn't suicidal. But the gym leader version of Dylan? That, he could face. Challenging Dylan in the tournament would be hell mode. Better to start with the gym. In that case, I accept, Dylan grinned. He was happy to battle Steven either way. Oh, that's my best friend. I admire your bravery. Wallace beamed. Thanks so much, buddy. Steven's eyelid twitched. Having Wallace as a friend was truly a blessing. Of course, we're pals. Wallace said proudly. Via Hoopa's portal, they returned to the Rota Gym. Hoopa's powers made it easy to keep the proper atmosphere for a gym challenge. Alright, Steven. Try your luck, let's see what type you get. Dylan gestured to the roulette wheel. By now, it had all types, plus one golden section, legendary. Got it. Steven nodded, scanning the options. He liked steel and rock types, so if he could pick, that's what he'd choose. But the whole point of this was randomness. Don't worry, Steven. With your luck, you'll definitely get a great type. Wallace was cheering him on from behind. Of course, he knew any type was tough. Dylan was no pushover. Still, good friends offer encouragement. Just don't land on the legendary slot. As long as you avoid that, you'll have a fighting chance. Can you shut up? Steven muttered, shooting Wallace a look. He took a deep breath and pressed the start button. The wheel spun. Everyone watched intently. I guarantee it won't land on legendary. I'll bet 10 years of Steven's lifespan. Wallace declared confidently. Steven's eye twitched. That's your bet? The wheel began to slow. Then, it stopped. The pointer landed on a narrow strip of brilliant gold, smaller than a fingertip. Two stylized characters gleamed brightly, legendary. Steven's face froze. Dylan's eyebrow lifted. Eh? Wallace blinked. Then suddenly lit up with energy. Steven! You're so lucky! He was amazed, no one had drawn the golden legendary slot in ages. You! Steven nearly lost it. Calm down, Steven. Think about it, what are the odds? 1 in 1,000 challengers might land on this. Steven's face twitched. He was so mad he laughed. What could he even say? From a certain angle, your luck is incredible, Lily smiled, covering her mouth. This was a jackpot pull. Like winning the lottery. Looked it that way, sure, but... Steven sighed. This wasn't what he wanted. If he knew this would happen, he'd have just challenged Dylan in the championship. Oh well. Since fate decided this. Dylan, I'll be in your care. He quickly gathered himself, eyes burning with determination. There's a saying, if you can't fight it, enjoy it. He was Steven Stone, champion of Hoenn. No worries, Steven, Dylan smiled gently. This will be unforgettable. Chapter 425. Can Steven defeat Dylan's legendary team? Inside the Rota Gym, Dylan and Steven stood facing each other at their designated trainer spots. Looking at the black-clad Dylan across from him, Steven felt his heart pounding, a sensation he hadn't experienced before a battle in a long time. Nervousness? Honestly, it had been ages since Steven last felt this way before a match. But this opponent was simply too extraordinary. Dylan. The Rota Gym leader, Kanto League's champion and Elite Four member, and widely acknowledged as the strongest trainer in the world. And the kicker, thanks to Wallace's jinx, Steven had drawn the Golden Legend lineup. The Rota Gym challenge battle will now begin. Leaf entered the field. Today, she wore a blue crop top and a white pleated skirt, looking vibrant and full of youthful energy. Her long, shapely, fair legs immediately drew attention. The challenger is Steven from the Hoenn region. The battle format is a full 6-on-6. Gym leader Dylan will send out first and cannot switch Pokemon. The challenge is successful once all 6 of Dylan's Pokemon are rendered unable to battle. Leaf popped a lollipop into her mouth and waved a small flag. Battle begin. After announcing the rules, she gracefully exited the battlefield. A golden legendary team, huh? I wonder which legendaries Dylan's going to use this time. Wallace, seated in the front row, spoke with a cheerful tone. He sincerely hoped Dylan would use those divine, dragon-type legendaries he'd brought out against Leon. Wallace deeply regretted not being at that battle live. It still gnawed at him to have missed seeing those legendary Pokemon in action. What a crime! Hopefully, his dear friend Steven could hang in there long enough. Or maybe spam Roar and Whirlwind to force all 6 legends onto the field for display. As for whether Steven would win? Wallace wasn't trying to belittle his beloved friend, but come on, Steven, against Dylan? What could he possibly do to win? Hearing Wallace, Diantha and Cynthia also grew curious. Lily, what do you think? Diantha asked, turning to her. I'm not sure. Big Brother has too many legends, and it's hard to guess what level of strength he'll use today. Lily blinked and then gave a slightly embarrassed smile. The 3 champions shared a knowing glance. Yeah. Even though they stood at the top of the trainer world, in truth, they'd barely encountered legendaries themselves. They were just too rare. Meanwhile, Dylan had so many, he didn't even know which ones to pick. Legendary Pokemon come in tiers too. Big Brother has standard legends like NTI, high-tier ones like Reshiram, and then top-tier like Kyurem. So drawing the Golden Legend lineup doesn't mean there's zero chance of victory. Lily explained with a calm expression. If Dylan chooses standard legendaries today, then Steven might. He might have a chance to win? Wallace's eyes sharpened. Not quite, but maybe take out 1 or 2. Maybe. Lily touched her fair chin, thinking aloud, but didn't sound certain. In her view, champions like Leon, Lance, or Giovanni wouldn't be clean swept by Dylan's standard legendary team. And on a good day, they might even win. But the odds were slim. Even among standard legendaries, they stood above regular Pokemon. Pseudo-legendaries, at the same level, still fell short of even the average legend. Oh, then that's fine. Wallace smiled, relieved. Actually, Big Brother has had his legends defeated before. I remember Red beat his NTI in a challenge last year, and Nimona took down his Zamazenta once in Paldea. Lily added with a laugh. Dylan didn't lose much, and he rarely used his legends against regular trainers, so Lily remembered these exceptions clearly. Red and Nimona, huh? Cynthia and the others' eyes flashed thoughtfully. Red, now the second-ranked Kanto Elite Four, even above Blue, was someone they'd met during the Saffron incident last year. And Nimona, well, she had come to watch Blue vs. Leon with Diantha not long ago. But if Big Brother uses Pokemon like Reshiram, then Mr. Steven. Lily trailed off politely. The others understood. If Dylan brought out Reshiram and the like, Steven would likely be swept. Meanwhile, on the battlefield. Steven, this is your first time challenging the Rota Gym, so as per tradition, allow me to formally introduce myself, Dylan said with a gentle smile. Of course. I would have reminded you if you hadn't, Steven replied good-naturedly. Despite his calm demeanor, Steven was genuinely interested in the Rota Gym's famed pre-battle intro. Every first-time challenger experienced it. I'm Dylan, the master of this Rota Gym. He unbuttoned the top 2 buttons of his black shirt, loosened his collar, and elegantly pulled on a pair of black gloves. I specialize in all types of Pokemon. Today, I'll be using legendary Pokemon to face you, Steven. Steven's expression turned serious. Legendary Pokemon often possess overwhelming power and are extremely rare. Myths, ruins, ancient texts, all contain traces of their legacy. Of course, you've seen them in action before. Dylan played with a deep red luxury ball, tilting his head slightly toward Steven. Indeed, Steven had seen legendaries in Hoen's waters during the Saffron incident. But this is probably your first time battling a legendary inside a proper battlefield, isn't it? Then please, feel it for yourself, the presence and power of a legend in battle. Dylan enlarged the luxury ball and, with a flourish, tossed it backward over his shoulder. Now then, my first Pokemon is this. Zapdos. With a sharp cry, a robust bird-like Pokemon landed heavily in front of Dylan. Its claws raked the floor as its fierce eyes locked onto Steven. That's Zapdos? Wallace stared, stunned. Its feathers were orange and black, spike-like plumage extended from its wings, tail, and back. Its powerful legs looked like they could crush steel. This thing was terrifying. This was Zapdos? Even if he wasn't from Kanto, Wallace knew what the legendary Zapdos was supposed to look like. Aside from the spiky feathers, this thing looked more like a ground-running chicken than an electric phoenix. It is Zapdos, but the Galarian form, Lily explained with a sigh. Rotom. On it, Rotom. Rotom Dex flew over and scanned it. Beep. Zapdos, Galarian form, fighting/flying type, strong legs Pokemon. Ability, Defiant. Moves, Thunderous Kick, Reversal, Close Combat, Detect, Quick Guard. Description: its leg strength is so powerful it can shatter dump trucks with a single kick. It's said to sprint through mountain ranges at 300 km per hour, Galar form. Clearly, this Galar Zapdos was no joke. Fighting/flying type. I caught it during my trip to the Crown Tundra, Dylan explained with a smile. He knew Steven likely didn't know much about Galar Zapdos, but Dylan never cared about small advantages like information gaps. A legendary Zapdos, huh? Steven's handsome face turned solemn. No matter the opponent, I fight with everything I've got. Identify the weak point and strike. That was Steven's battle philosophy: find the flaw and exploit it. And Steven was the steel-type specialist. Skarmory. He flung his arm out, striking his classic battle pose. Champion Steven ready to challenge. A heavy metallic shriek rang out as a steel-plated bird soared onto the field. Skarmory, one of Steven's favorite openers. Beep. Skarmory, steel/flying type armor bird Pokemon. Ability, Keen Eye. Moves: Brave Bird, Iron Defense, Stealth Rock, Steel Wing, Counter. Description: its sturdy wings may seem heavy, but the hollow feathers allow it to fly swiftly through the skies. Skarmory, huh? Not bad. Cynthia nodded in analysis. Steel resists flying and beats fighting. Type-wise, Steven had the advantage. Plus, Skarmory's physical defense was incredibly high, and Galar Zapdos, just looking at it, you could tell it was a physical attacker. Big legs, burly frame, definitely a brawler. Still, that was just conjecture. They'd need to fight to know for sure. Good opener. Perfect to test what Galar Zapdos can really do, Diantha agreed. Judging by its classification as a standard legend, this Zapdos wouldn't be too overpowering. Looked like Dylan was giving Steven a fair chance. Now it was up to Steven to capitalize. Skarmory, huh? Dylan's smile curved upward slightly. The challenger gets the first move. He gestured politely. Steven didn't hesitate. He locked eyes with the grounded Zapdos. Stealth Rock. He chose Stealth Rock over spikes. Galar Zapdos might prefer to stay grounded, but that didn't mean it wasn't airborne. Also, Stealth Rocks can damage even flying Pokemon, depending on the situation. Skarmory shrieked, spread its wings, and launched shimmering rocks into the air. Figures. Traps first, Dylan muttered with a smirk. Steven was going classic. Skarmory was one of the best entry hazard setters in the game. Taunt. Dylan commanded coolly. Galar Zapdos raised its head, narrowed its ruthless eyes, and let out a shrill cry. A wave of dark, intangible energy surged across the field. Taunt, a dark-type move. Just as Skarmory scattered most of its rocks, its eyes flared with rage, glaring daggers at Zapdos. The pulse hit. Taunt successful. Skarmory could no longer use support moves. But Steven wasn't surprised. Getting most of the rocks up was already a win. Brave bird. Steven swept his arm forward, initiating offense. Skarmory cried out, engulfed in a crimson flame, and dove straight toward Galar Zapdos. Not the wisest move, Steven, Dylan chuckled. Crush it. Galar Zapdos' temper was just as fiery as its appearance suggested. With a sharp screech, it burst into a matching Brave Bird aura and launched upward. Boom! The two brave birds collided midair. But the clash was one-sided. Zapdos tore through Skarmory's flame, slamming hard into its chest. Skarmory grunted, blasted backward by the overwhelming force. Zapdos dashed to follow up. Its wings weren't just for show. Boom! One of the now visible stealth rocks exploded beneath it, catching Zapdos off guard. It winced but landed solidly, eyes flaring at the airborne Skarmory. Skarmory quickly recovered, hovering once more and locking eyes with its foe. That strength is unreal. Steven frowned slightly. Zapdos wasn't just powerful, it hit like a truck. Skarmory's attack power wasn't amazing, but it wasn't bad. Yet it was crushed on contact. Of course, Steven hadn't expected to win the exchange. He was scouting. Maybe using hazards to wear it down, then Whirlwind after the taunt ends? Steven calculated quickly. Whirlwind could force the opponent to switch out, pulling in a random Pokémon. With rocks now set, that would let him chip the whole team down, his best shot at tackling a legendary squad. Chapter 426, Dylan's Complete Trio. Scattering hazards and then forcing the opponent to switch with Whirlwind or Roar, this was one of the most enduring tactics Dylan remembered from his past life in the Pokémon games. A very nasty strategy. But in reality, pulling it off effectively wasn't so simple. It all came down to the hazards. In the games, moves were restricted. Each Pokémon only had 4 slots. That meant very few trainers actually carried Defog, Rapid Spin, or similar hazard-clearing moves. Unless it was during a meta where Stall was everywhere. But the real world was different. Here, there were no limits to the number of moves a Pokémon could learn. If it could be taught, it could be used. So unless you caught your opponent completely off guard, using hazards to dominate a full battle was unrealistic. Still, if you could make them matter even for a short while in a 6-on-6, that was already a success. Going to use Roar? Steven's brows furrowed as he quickly ran through his options. Skarmory could inherit Whirlwind and learn Roar via TM, forcing a switch wasn't the problem. The real question was, which legendaries did Dylan bring? If they were anything like the myths, dragging out a Big Daddy could be a disaster. Steven had heard of a trainer who got lucky once Roar pulled out both Reshiram and Kyurem in the same match. The very thought of that made his scalp go numb. Forget it. Too risky. His train of thought halted. Mature and steady as always, Steven wasn't the type to gamble against the unknown. Besides, he'd just drawn his own golden legendary not long ago. He still didn't know if that made him fortunate or cursed. Come back, Skarmory. Steven recalled his armored bird. No point letting it keep trading with Galarian Zapdos. Taunt had already locked Skarmory into only attacking moves. And in raw offense, Skarmory simply couldn't match Zapdos. Claydol. He tossed out his second Pokeball. White light flashed, and a dark-bodied creature with rings of eyes floated before him, his trusty Claydol. Deep Claydol. Ground/Psychic type. Claydol Pokemon. Ability, Levitate. Moves, Explosion, Power Split, Guard Split, Earth Power, Psychic, Imprison. Claydol. Dylan raised a brow. Truth be told, that Pokemon could be troublesome. Claydol, use POW. Taunt. Steven had barely begun his order, planning to call for Power Split. It wouldn't have mattered how strong Zapdos' attack was, Power Split would have leveled it out, giving Claydol equal force. And with its natural bulk, Claydol could have become nearly flawless both offensively and defensively. But Dylan wasn't about to allow it. At his command, Galarian Zapdos' eyes flashed with dark light as it let out a sharp, piercing screech. Invisible waves rippled outward. Claydol's eyes burned red as it glared down, fury surging through its core. Taunt had taken effect. Not bad, Dylan. Steven sighed, his opponent's reflexes were too sharp. Dylan had probably seen through his plan the instant Claydol appeared. It only proved Steven's strategy wasn't wrong, but that taunt was a problem. Ice beam. Steven decided to test the waters anyway. Claydol's arms glowed as icy blue energy condensed, launching twin freezing beams at Zapdos. Dodge, Dylan said calmly. Zapdos leapt instantly. Ice was dangerous to a flyer like it. Its leg strength was incredible. Even a light spring sent it soaring meters high. But then... boom! Zapdos clipped a stealth rock crystal, detonating it with a crack. The blast knocked it off balance with a grunt. Claydol! Steven barked. Claydol instantly redirected its arms, firing another ice beam. Thunderous kick! Zapdos screeched in fury. Proud and fierce, it would not tolerate being battered by hazards twice. Electricity crackled across its body before it shot forward like a thunderbolt, slamming its glowing leg into Claydol. The ice beam barely missed as Zapdos closed in with terrifying speed. Bam! The kick landed hard, sending Claydol tumbling through the air. It steadied itself quickly, its defenses were solid. Dylan smirked. Impressive. That's Zapdos' signature strike, and you're still standing. But with Taunt locking it out of status moves, Claydol's real threat was diminished. Dark Thrust. Zapdos' claws gleamed black as it spun forward, smashing into Claydol's head. The impact drove it like a cannonball into the ground. Boom! Claydol crashed heavily, the dark-typed attack biting into its psychic typing. Again! Zapdos screeched, body spinning like a fiery wheel before darting down once more. Another stealth rock exploded mid-charge, knocking it off course. TCH, lucky break, Wallace remarked, watching from the side with an amused smile. Not luck, Cynthia noted, Dylan just isn't clearing the field. He could, but he hasn't. This is his way of easing up. After all, this was a gym match, not the World Championship. Even so, Steven was clearly on the back foot. Zapdos, dual wing beat. Dylan ordered sharply. Zapdos surged forward, wings gleaming as it slashed down at Claydol. Claydol countered with another ice beam, but Zapdos twisted gracefully, blocking with one wing while hammering with the other. Wham! Claydol reeled under the blow, just the beginning of Zapdos' assault. Dark Thrust. Zapdos' claws tore forward again, slamming Claydol to the ground in a cloud of dust. U-turn. Zapdos darted through the haze, striking before recalling itself in a flash of white light, returning to Dylan's ball. Claydol is unable to battle. Zapdos wins. Leaf declared. Steven frowned but silently withdrew his partner. Come on, Steven, Dylan teased, tossing another pokeball with a grin. Show me your real strength or this won't end well for you. Steven smiled faintly, though his eyes stayed sharp. It's only just begun. Good. Then here's your next challenge, my second legendary. With a flick of his wrist, Dylan released his next Pokémon. Articuno, to the field. A chilling cry split the air as a dark, spectral bird spread its crimson-black wings, flames of malice licking its form. Steven's eyes narrowed. Galarian Articuno? Feathers black streaked with red, crimson beak and talons, tail and wings blazing with eerie fire, it radiated a sinister aura. Beep Articuno, Galarian form. Dark/flying type. Malevolent Pokémon. Ability, Berserk. Moves, Fiery Wrath, Brave Bird, Hurricane, Nasty Plot, Sucker Punch. Galarian Articuno. Dark and flying. Steven, let's see how it compares to the ordinary one. Dylan chuckled, straightening his collar. I've never even seen an ordinary Articuno, Steven muttered dryly. That's Kanto's legend, not Hoenn's. Oh? Dylan blinked, then smiled warmly. Well, no matter. I've got the full trio right here. If you'd like the experience, I'll be happy to arrange it. Stephen fell silent. Dylan, meanwhile, felt very pleased with his generosity. Chapter 427, Dylan, this is my first time using it. Galarian Moltres? It really doesn't look easy to deal with. From the audience, Eileen stared at the black and red sinister bird, its wings and tail feathers blazing like fire. It was terrifying. The sense of pressure it gave was even greater than the Galarian Zapdos from earlier. I heard Dylan already had Articuno and Zapdos, but I didn't expect he'd also have Galarian Moltres and Galarian Zapdos. Cynthia's eyes gleamed with excitement. A strong opponent like this stirred her fighting spirit. Actually, my brother also has the regular Moltres. As for the Galarian trio, he caught them in the crown tundra of Galar. Lily explained with a bright smile. Indeed, back then, after persuading Calyrex to temporarily join his party, Dylan had gone on to capture the 3 Galarian birds. Calyrex, having been asleep for so long, truly didn't know their whereabouts, but Glastrier and Spectrier, who wandered freely, had seen them. And with Clefairy plus Calyrex's sweeping psychic abilities, it didn't take long for Dylan to gather all 3 Galarian birds. So that means Dylan has all 6 of them now. I wonder what Stephen will use to fight against that Galarian Moltres. The group, including Wallace, began to discuss. Agrun. After a moment's thought, Stephen decisively threw out his third Pokeball. Agrun. A monster Pokemon clad head to toe in steel armor crashed heavily onto the field before him, roaring at Galarian Moltres. It was none other than Agrun, the final evolution of Aron. Deep Agrun. Steel/Rock type, Iron Armor Pokemon. Ability, Rock Head. Moves, Metal Burst, Double Edge, Heavy Slam, Iron Defense, Iron Tail, Rock Slide. Info, it claims entire mountains as its territory. The more scars on its body, the more battles it has endured, never underestimate it. Dylan sized up the imposing Agrun. Not bad at all. It was a good choice. Rock beats flying, so Agrun had a type advantage over Galarian Moltres. And despite its name, Galarian Moltres wasn't a fire type at all. It didn't even know any fire moves aside from Sunny Day. Agrun, Stone Edge. Stephen launched the first attack, wanting to gauge Moltres' power. Dark Pulse sent it back. Agrun roared, sharp rocks forming in front of it. Stone Edge. The jagged stones whistled through the air. Galarian Moltres spread its wings slowly, gathering black energy at its beak. A dark, pulsing wave shot forward, colliding head-on with the incoming stones. Boom! Dark Pulse and Stone Edge crashed together, explosions shaking the field. But soon, Dark Pulse overwhelmed the stones, pushing forward relentlessly. Special attack is strong. Stephen noted this immediately. Agrun's greatest strength was its physical defense. But its physical offense wasn't weak either. Yet even its stab Stone Edge was suppressed by Moltres' Dark Pulse. That said it all. Not an ideal matchup. Agrun was better suited to walling physical attackers. As for why he hadn't used it earlier against Galarian Zapdos? Agrun was 4x weak to fighting, sending it out then would have been suicide. Come back, Agrun. Stephen recalled it. Withdrawn? A smart choice. Dylan chuckled lightly. If Stephen kept Agrun out, it really wouldn't stand a chance. After all, Galarian Moltres commanded the skies, and Dark wasn't resisted by Steel/Rock. Metagross. Stephen threw his fourth Pokeball. Metagross. In a flash of white, the blue steel behemoth landed before him, eyes fixed on Galarian Moltres. Eh? So soon to use your ace? Lily blinked in surprise. Everyone knew Metagross was Stephen's signature Pokemon. Not anymore. Wallace smirked, shaking his head. As Stephen's closest friend, of course he knew Stephen's team had changed. Mr. Stephen has already grown so much? Eileen was shocked. The ace of a team was the one Pokemon capable of turning a battle around. Metagross wasn't just Stephen's signature, it was his strongest. Even if all his others fell, as long as Metagross stood, he still had a chance to win. That was Steven's reputation. But now, he'd raised another to take Metagross' place? Incredible. Wallace blinked, not quite sure how to describe Steven's new ace. Yes, Metagross was no longer the trump card. But Steven's new ace. Metagross? Dylan raised an eyebrow at the sight. Dylan, please experience this for yourself. Steven drew in a breath, lifting a black Terra orb. Terastallization. Brilliant gem-like light enveloped Metagross, sparkling like crystal. When it faded, Metagross stood shimmering, encased in a translucent crystal sheen. Terra Steel Metagross. As expected of you, Steven. Even mastering terastallization. Dylan admired, noting the axe-shaped mark atop its head, the symbol of Terra Steel. And not Mega Evolution? Interesting. That meant this Metagross clearly wasn't his ace anymore. So what was? For even a legendary to replace Mega Metagross would be difficult. Was it that one from the anime? Falling behind is the same as growing weaker. With so many excellent juniors rising, we have to keep pace. Steven smiled. This Terra orb had been given to him by Eileen. In Paldea, they weren't too rare, so she'd offered one to Cynthia, Steven, and others. But outside Paldea, with no natural Terra energy, they could only be used once before needing a recharge back there. Troublesome, yes, but still worth using. After all, terastallization provided a genuine boost in battle. How could one not use it? Steven had even obtained both a Dynamax band and a Zeering. I may no longer be a boy, but I'm still young. Steven chuckled faintly. Not the child he once was, but not yet one of the old generation either. Then let me see what your terastallized Metagross can do. Dylan smirked. Of course. Metagross. Steven's voice sharpened as he gave the command. The crystalline Metagross roared, bracing itself. Bullet punch. Its claws gleamed with metallic light as it lunged forward at high speed. Steel-type priority move bullet punch. Sucker punch. Dylan remained calm. Galarian Molter's eyes flashed darkly, its body streaking black and red as it rushed in. Dark-type priority move sucker punch. Blue steel and black-red shadows clashed, but the latter was clearly faster. In an instant, they crossed paths. Metagross tried to turn, but Molter's was already upon it. So fast. Steven's face darkened, Metagross couldn't react in time. Wham! Molter's sucker punch slammed straight into its forehead. Metagross groaned, staggering back. Fiery wrath. Cry. With a shrill, sinister screech, Galarian Molter's flared with black-red energy. The next moment, a torrent of power surged upward beneath Metagross, engulfing it completely, forcing its eyes shut in pain. Molter's signature move, Fiery Wrath. Steven frowned tightly. The follow-up was simply too fast. Boom! Fiery Wrath exploded, blasting Metagross further back. Dark Pulse. Dylan pressed the assault. Molter's raised its head, loosing rippling black waves at Metagross. Metagross, Meteor Mash. Forcing itself steady, Metagross' claw shone brightly, swinging into the oncoming Dark Pulse. The steel Meteor Mash clashed violently with Dark Pulse. Metagross roared, putting all its weight into it. And shattered the black energy. Molter's narrowed its eyes, wings shifting slightly. Boom! It struck a stealth rock on entry, the shards exploding painfully against it. Ugh, Molter shrieked, stumbling before steadying itself again. Rocks were doubly effective. That hurt. Quite a powerful Meteor Mash. Dylan praised. No wonder Metagross had once been Steven's ace, it truly was formidable. And with Terra Steel boosting its stab, its steel moves packed even more punch. Still, this won't be easy. Molter's has Sucker Punch to counter Bullet Punch. Wallace studied the sinister bird, it looked every bit the evil omen, especially with that blood-red hooked beak. At least Terra Steel resists dark. Otherwise, those last two hits would have hurt Metagross even worse. Cynthia nodded. Normally Steel/Psychic Metagross was weak to dark. With Terra Steel, it was neutral damage now. That mattered, otherwise, Sucker Punch plus Fiery Wrath would have been devastating. But Metagross has to get close to beat it. And Dylan won't give that chance. Metagross, Light Screen. Steven decided to wall up instead. Closing in on Moltres wasn't simple. Better to play it slow. Besides, Moltres didn't seem to have any strong super effective moves against it. With Light Screen up, its dark moves would deal far less damage. And there were still Stealth Rocks in play. Taunt! Dylan ordered immediately. As Metagross summoned the translucent wall, Moltres shrieked harshly, exuding malice. But too late, without Prankster, its taunt couldn't stop the Light Screen in time. The barrier sank into Metagross, though it was now under Taunt's effect, unable to use status moves for a while. TCH. Dylan sighed. Steven really did want to drag things out. But Dylan wasn't running a stall team. Now Metagross had Light Screen having special damage, and Moltres couldn't do much more to it. So Dylan had Moltres U-turn, striking once before returning to its ball. High defense plus Light Screen, you've given me quite the puzzle, Steven. Dylan tossed another ball. Not for you. After all, you've got Reshiram, Kyurem. Ah, but today, I want to give some others their chance. Dylan shrugged. Then your third opponent will be this one. He threw the Pokeball. Zeraora. Get ready. With a low growl, the lightning-fast beast landed before Dylan, eyes locked on Metagross. The mythical Pokemon Zeraora. Steven, be careful as Zeraora's power surpasses even Zapdos and Moltres. Dylan grinned. Mythical, huh? Steven studied the lithe feline carefully. Deep Zeraora. Electric type, Thunderclap Pokemon. Ability, Volt Absorb. Moves, Plasma Fists, Close Combat, Wild Charge, Fake Out, Thunder Punch. Info. It discharges electricity from its paw pads. Wherever Zeraora sprints, lightning and thunder follow. This is the first time I'll be using Zeraora in an official battle. But against your Metagross, it's the perfect opponent. Dylan smiled. I should be honored. Steven twitched. This was Dylan's third legendary already. The rotation never stopped. Clearly, Dylan wanted all his Pokemon to enjoy themselves. What would the next three be? Hard to say. But one thing was certain. Dylan wasn't planning to use his most broken ones here. Probably. Chapter 428, must defeat one. A pure electric type, Zeraora, huh? I've never even heard of Dylan owning one. Seeing the sleek and imposing figure of Zeraora standing before Dylan, Wallace couldn't help but smack his lips in surprise. A mythical Pokemon. While most people lump mythical Pokemon together with legendary Pokemon, in truth, if we're being precise, mythicals are even rarer and more precious than standard legendaries. That's because almost no one has ever pushed my brother far enough to bring out his Zeraora. Lily's eyes curved into a beautiful smile. In fact, every one of my brother's top-ranked, type-specialized teams has at least one legendary Pokemon as either the ace or the central powerhouse. For example, Zeraora belongs to my brother's electric-type team. It rotates with Zapdos as the ace. She explained casually. But basically, no one's ever been able to force Dylan to use his Zeraora, right? Eileen added with a laugh. Of course, that was only natural. Dylan's electric team was undoubtedly terrifyingly strong. And with either Zeraora or Zapdos as its ace, it was obvious he'd only bring them out as the trump card. Truthfully, Eileen doubted whether even she herself could make Dylan reveal Zeraora if she challenged his electric team. She really wasn't confident at all. Steel Terra Metagross against a pure electric-type Zeraora. In terms of typing alone, Zeraora holds the slight advantage, Cynthia analyzed. Steel resists a lot, but not electric. Still, even terastallized into pure steel, Metagross retained its psychic stab. So it all depended on how the battle played out. On the field, Steven studied Zeraora carefully, trying to work out a strategy. But he honestly knew little about Zeraora, he'd barely even heard the name before today. Metagross, Bullet Punch. Steven ordered decisively after a moment's thought. It wasn't that he expected Bullet Punch to deal big damage, but its priority would let Metagross close the gap quickly. That way, Metagross could leverage its overwhelming strength in close combat. The steel giant raised its claws and charged. "Fake out," Dylan said lightly. Zeraora's body blurred, vanishing into an afterimage that shot toward Metagross at impossible speed. Bang! Its paw slammed against Metagross's forehead, forcing the steel titan back as it raised both claws defensively. Flinched. Steven's brows knit. Fake out, such an annoying move, and not easy to counter. Aura Sphere, Dylan ordered immediately. Zeraora clasped its claws together, condensing a sky-blue sphere of energy, then hurled it toward Metagross. A fighting-type move. Super effective against steel. Metagross! Steven shouted. Dylan always trained his Pokémon to excel at chaining attacks. Pursuit speed was critical in battle. And Zeraora, as a lightning-fast offensive Pokémon, relied on that speed most of all. Fake out to flinch, then immediate follow-up. This was something Dylan had drilled into it relentlessly. But Steven's Metagross, once his ace, was no slouch. Even shaking off the flinch, it reacted instantly. Its arms gleamed with metallic light. Meteor Mash. Boom! The Aura Sphere exploded against Metagross's Meteor Mash, knocking the steel behemoth backward with a pained groan. That's the best I can do. Steven frowned. He had managed to lessen the blow, but it still hurt. If he hadn't reacted so fast, Metagross would have eaten the full blast. Flame Kick. Dylan commanded. Zeraora snarled, its body sparking as it blurred into a streak of yellow lightning, appearing above Metagross in a blink. Red flames ignited around its right leg as it spun into a brutal downward kick. So fast. Steven's pupils shrank. This wasn't even a priority move. That was just Zeraora's raw speed? Psychic. Metagross's eyes glowed with deep blue light, psychic energy freezing Zeraora's kick midair. But the restraint lasted only a heartbeat before Zeraora tore free and brought its fiery kick crashing down. Metagross barely got its arms up to block. Boom! The fire kick exploded against its limbs, flames surging over its steel body. The damage was heavy. Again. Fire kick, Dylan's lips curled. Zeraora's left leg whipped around, flames igniting as it slammed down in a vicious follow-up. Bang! This time, Metagross failed to guard. The flaming kick smashed directly into its head, sending it crashing to the ground. Plasma Fists. Landing smoothly, Zeraora spread its claws, crackling blue currents arcing wildly before slamming both paws into the ground. Twin bolts of plasma surged along the floor toward Metagross. Protect! Steven yelled. But it was too late. The emerald shimmer of Protect barely began to form before the electric blast engulfed Metagross. ZZZZT. Blue lightning ravaged its entire frame. This chain of attacks, way too fast. Cynthia's clear eyes darkened. That speed was terrifying. Even Steven's Metagross couldn't keep up. Yeah, a burst offense style. And it hits hard too, Eileen agreed, recalling Dylan's battle against Caitlin, where his shiny Greninja demolished her Mega Metagross with similar relentless speed. Glass cannon or not, hitting something that fast was the real problem. And right now, Metagross was utterly suppressed. Close combat. Dylan pressed the assault. Bullet Punch. Steven countered, desperate. Zeraora's claws shone white as it lunged. The crushing blow landed despite Metagross's attempt to slip away. Its Bullet Punch came too late. Metagross reeled, staggering under the impact. Zeraora straightened slightly, sparks flickering across its body as it glanced almost curiously at its paw. Then it fixed its cold eyes back on Metagross. Oh. It dodged enough to lessen the hit, Dylan mused. But close combat's recoil kicked in, lowering Zeraora's defenses. Steven stared blankly. That counts as a dodge? His metagross was clearly hit. Dylan only chuckled. You can dodge once, but can you dodge twice? Zeraora, fire kick. The electric beast blurred forward again. Zen headbutt. Steven snapped. Metagross charged head-on. Crash. The two moves collided in a deafening impact, blasting both back. Even weakened, Metagross refused to crumble. But Zeraora was still too fast. In the blink of an eye, it reappeared before Metagross, claws glowing brick break. Smash. The blow cracked against its forehead, flinging Metagross across the arena. Finish it. Fire kick. Dylan's eyes narrowed. The crowd saw it too. If this hit landed, Metagross was done. Explosion. Steven roared without hesitation. Metagross flared with blinding white light, turning into a miniature sun. Zeraora. Dylan's brows rose. Even Zeraora couldn't retreat in time. Boom. The battlefield detonated in a deafening blast, the shockwave forcing Steven to shield his face. Smoke choked the air, impossible to see through. Steven. Did that land? Wallace gasped. He never expected Steven to order explosion, that wasn't his style at all. But could it have worked? Perhaps. Cynthia frowned, eyes fixed on the smoke. Then. A shadow shot out of the haze, skidding across the ground. Zeraora, battered and panting, one claw braced against the floor, still on its feet. It had taken the hit, but survived. Steven fell silent. He had hoped explosion would cripple it. But Zeraora hadn't been caught in the full blast. The dust cleared, revealing Metagross collapsed at the center of a crater, its terra glow faded. Metagross is unable to battle. Zeraora wins, Leaf declared. Steven recalled his partner. Dylan glanced at his Zeraora, now recovered enough to stand tall again. Nicely done, Steven. That explosion was a beautiful play. He didn't hold back his praise. Truly, he hadn't expected Steven to use such a desperate tactic. But he liked surprises. Unfortunately, it still wasn't enough to defeat my Zeraora. Steven exhaled slowly, eyes sharp as he drew his next pokeball. No. This is only the beginning. I will defeat it. After all, he was Steven. He would take down at least one of Dylan's legendaries. He had to. Chapter 429, I hope Dylan will go easy. This explosion didn't seriously injure Zeraora, that was the best chance. Wallace sighed in regret. He hadn't expected Metagross's explosion to completely take out Zeraora. Still, it was an explosion. And Zeraora was clearly a high-speed, high-offense attacker, its defenses couldn't possibly be that strong. Even if it was a mythical Pokémon, the fact that explosion hadn't dealt heavy damage was just too much of a missed opportunity. You're right, it really was a great chance. But Zeraora's speed and reflexes are terrifying. Wallace agreed fully. No one had seen that explosion coming because it wasn't Steven's usual battling style at all. He had never relied on explosion or mutual destruction moves before. At the very least, he had a chance, Cynthia murmured, watching Zeraora straighten back up. The scars across its sleek body showed its condition. Even if the blast hadn't landed cleanly, the damage still wasn't light. Steven might still have a chance to beat Zeraora. But from the Rotom Dex's data, Cynthia and the others knew. Just like Galarian Zapdos and Galarian Moltres, Zeraora had a way to switch out safely. Volt Switch. An electric-type move that allowed retreat. If Dylan wanted to pull Zeraora out, Steven couldn't stop it. If Dylan wanted to keep Zeraora from fainting, he could just switch it. But right now, it didn't seem like Dylan had any plans to do that. On the battlefield. Iron treads. Steven's calm face was sharp with focus as he threw out his fifth Pokeball. In a flash of white, a Pokémon descended, similar to Donphan in form, but its entire body gleamed with futuristic machinery. The Paradox Pokémon, Iron Treads. Beep Iron Treads. Ground/Steel type. Paradox Pokémon. Ability, Quark Drive. Moves, Heavy Slam, Giga Impact, Mega Horn, Wild Charge, Earthquake. Description, resembles advanced alien weaponry described in paranormal magazines. Rotom Dex rattled off its data. Cynthia and the others nodded. Iron Tread's ground typing completely nullified Zeraora's electric attacks. Using Iron Treads here made perfect sense on paper. Looks like you raised it well, Stephen, Dylan said with a smile. After all, Iron Treads had originally come from Dylan. It was obvious Stephen had trained it carefully. But Stephen, Iron Tread still isn't a match for my Zeraora. The declaration was blunt. Zeraora wasn't limited to electric attacks. And while Iron Treads was decently fast, it was nowhere near Zeraora's level. Not to mention, Iron Treads couldn't fly. On the ground, unless it could keep up with Zeraora's speed, it didn't stand a chance. Not necessarily, Stephen said evenly. Oh? Dylan arched a brow, then chuckled. Show me where that confidence comes from. Zeraora, Aura Sphere. Dylan snapped his fingers. He half expected Stephen to Dynamax Iron Treads. This was a gym battle, after all, with no restrictions on power-ups. Zeraora brought its paws together, conjuring a sphere of pure blue energy, and hurled it toward Iron Treads at blazing speed. High horsepower. Stephen didn't hesitate. Aura Sphere was hard to dodge, its speed was high, and some said its wave-guiding force let it track its target precisely. Iron Treads roared, its body glowing with earthen power as it charged to meet the blast head-on. Boom! The two moves collided, detonating in a violent shockwave. Iron Treads was pushed back, taking some damage, but not much. As I thought. Zeraora's raw power isn't overwhelming. Stephen's eyes narrowed. Its speed was absurd, yes, but its actual strength was within manageable limits. Close in. Dylan gave another command. Zeraora crouched low, dashing forward like lightning. Iron Treads locked its gaze on the approaching blur, but even if it could see the movement, reacting in time was another matter entirely. Stephen's chest tightened. Even knowing Zeraora's intent, Iron Treads might not be able to counter or defend in time. Stealth Rock. If it couldn't dodge or block, then set the field. Earlier, only part of Stealth Rock had been used. Now Stephen filled the field anew. Iron Tread swung its trunk, scattering jagged stones that shimmered and vanished into place across the battlefield. Blaze Kick. Dylan's eyes narrowed. In a flash, Zeraora closed in from the side, its leg igniting in crimson flames. Bang! The fiery kick slammed into Iron Tread's flank, sending it skidding back in pain. Fire was super effective against steel, the hit stung. Iron Treads dug in, claws gouging the ground until it stopped, though Stealth Rocks had already spread. Beautiful control. With Stealth Rock in play, Zeraora can't recklessly abuse its speed anymore. Cynthia nodded approvingly. Hazards like Toxic Spikes, or Stealth Rock were perfect counters to fast attackers. In reality, those moves weren't just chip damage. The sudden stab of pain on contact could break a Pokémon's rhythm entirely. Aura Sphere. Dylan pressed the assault. Zeraora hurled another sphere. Boom! Iron Treads, still unsteady, couldn't dodge and took the full blast, crying out as the attack exploded across its body. Special damage cut deeper. Aura Sphere punished Iron Tread's weaker defenses far more than Blaze Kick had. Troublesome, Dylan muttered, frowning at the rocks restricting Zeraora. Still, he wasn't planning to switch out. This was a gym match and Stephen was his friend. Sometimes, you had to give a little leeway. Close in again. But this time, as Zeraora sprinted forward, a Stealth Rock flared underfoot. Boom! The trap detonated, forcing Zeraora to stumble with a cry. And in that instant, Earthquake! Stephen commanded. Iron treads stomped hard, the battlefield shaking violently. Protect! A green barrier snapped up just in time, shielding Zeraora from the tremors. But Steven's momentum was building. Steelix followed. Agron entered. Hazards tightened the noose. Wallace's eyes lit up. Steven's turning the battle around. Wallace nodded. It's shifting in his favor now. But they both knew Agron carried fatal weaknesses quadruple to fighting in ground. If Zeraora landed the right hit, it could end things instantly. It seems Dylan doesn't plan to switch Zeraora out, Wallace observed. With so many hazards littering the field, the restrictions were indeed heavy. Yes, Dylan really was going easy on Steven. Wallace smirked. I wonder if he'd give me the same mercy if I challenged him. Chapter 430, I once defeated Dylan's legendary Pokemon. Of course, Dylan's a good guy, but where his true limit is now, no one really knows, right? Wallace sighed with emotion. It reminded him of when he challenged the Rota gym. Dylan had considerately switched out his Smeargle. Otherwise, he might have been completely swept by it. And honestly, that bright, cheerful Smeargle had thrown his mentality completely off back then. Yeah, even without using legendaries, Dylan's strength is terrifying. Didn't they say even Champion Lance was completely shut out by him? Cynthia didn't comment, though her eyes flickered. As the strongest trainer of Sinnoh, she had always had the urge to face Dylan in a full-powered battle. But she wasn't ready yet. That match with Lance was a little special. Lily's small face turned a little awkward as she remembered the battle between Dylan and Lance. I get it. Thanks to Dylan, the whole world now knows how to fight Lance. Wallace couldn't help laughing, joking lightly. I really want to know, if he doesn't use legendaries, who could ever defeat Dylan? He spoke sincerely. Many people thought Dylan's power came solely from those rule-breaking legendary Pokemon he commanded. After all, the battle between Leon and Dylan was just too shocking. But even without his legendaries, Dylan's strength was frightening. Was Dragon Master Lance strong? Of course. But Dylan had perfectly countered him with an Ice-type team, shutting him out completely. As Wallace had said, that battle showed everyone exactly how to beat Lance. But was it really as simple as bringing an Ice-type team? That was far too naive. Type advantage was only one factor. First, the trainers had to be evenly matched in overall skill, and then there were variables like form, command, and strategy. Anyone who thought they could just raise an Ice team and topple Lance was dreaming. And the Ice team was just one of many specialized teams Dylan had at his disposal. If we're talking about someone who could rival my brother without legendaries, there is one. My brother told me himself. Lily touched her chin with a slender finger, remembering Dylan's words. Oh? The other three all looked at her curiously. He's an old man. A very strong old man. My brother asked him to stand guard for him. Lily giggled as she spoke. Wallace tilted his head in confusion. An old man? Guarding? On the battlefield. Zeraora continued to watch carefully, while Agron burrowed underground. Dylan wasn't in a rush. Agron would strike soon enough. Sure enough, the ground beneath Zeraora cracked open. Zeraora reacted instantly, springing upward. Agron erupted from the earth like a steel monster, but it missed its dig attack. Aura Sphere. Zeraora's claws came together, forming an orb of energy. But then... boom! Stealth rocks detonated behind it, sending Zeraora staggering forward with a cry of pain. High horsepower. Agron roared, its body surging with brown energy as it slammed into Zeraora. Zeraora gritted its teeth, twisting to dodge, but it was too late. Crash! The hit landed, hurling Zeraora across the field. That strike dealt heavy damage. It was a super effective blow. Zeraora was in rough shape. Earthquake! Steven's heart pounded. Was victory finally within reach? He forced himself to stay calm as he commanded Agron forward. Agron stomped down, sending tremors racing across the battlefield. Protect! Dylan glanced at his exhausted partner. Zeraora forced up a green barrier, holding off the earthquake. It bought just enough time for Zeraora to steady itself and stand again. When it looked forward, Agrin was gone, only a dark hole remained. Dig, again. Stay sharp. Dylan warned. Zeraora growled softly, eyes narrowing as it focused. The arena fell silent. Then. Zeraora. This time, instead of leaping, Zeraora flicked its ears and darted back. Aura sphere. A blue orb formed in its claws. Agrin burst from the ground, glowing with power, but Zeraora sidestepped and hurled the attack into its flank. Steven's eyes widened. No! Agrin tried to twist back, but Zeraora was far too fast. Boom! Aura sphere detonated against its side, toppling the massive Pokémon with a roar of pain. The stadium shook from the impact. It had happened so fast that Wallace's jaw dropped. It's over, he muttered. Agrin was 4 times weak to fighting, and Aura sphere was special-based, preying on its weaker defenses. Close combat. Dylan commanded instantly. Zeraora pounced, fists and kicks glowing white as it unleashed a furious flurry. Agrin's cries weakened until, finally, silence fell. The steel titan collapsed, unconscious. Steven trembled, unable to speak. Agrin is unable to battle. Zeraora wins. The referee, Leaf, announced the result. Agrin's icon dimmed on the scoreboard. Steven rushed it, Caitlin sighed. He should have known Dylan wouldn't fall for the same trick twice. Yeah, a pity. Cynthia nodded. With all those stealth rocks on the field, if Steven had just played patiently, Zeraora would have gone down eventually. Instead, he'd given Dylan the opening. Still a little too hasty, Steven. Dylan smiled across the field. True. Steven exhaled. He knew it, he'd let excitement cloud his judgment. Dylan was no ordinary opponent. He should have been more careful with Dig. Come then. Let's see your next Pokémon, Skarmory? Or something else? Dylan gestured calmly. Skarmory would have been a bad choice. With its electric weakness, Zeraora could strike it down easily. No, Dylan. Let me show you my new ace. Steven's eyes gleamed as he pulled out his 6th Pokeball. He wasn't going to use Skarmory. Not after Zeraora had already taken down 3 of his Pokémon. Letting it claim a 4th would be humiliating. A new ace? Dylan raised an eyebrow. Interesting. Steven tossed the ball high. Go! Mita! With a heavy crash, a gleaming silver Metagross appeared, its body shining with a rare metallic sheen. Wait, that's... Caitlin's eyes widened. A shiny Metagross. Cynthia exclaimed. Even Dylan's brows rose. Well now. That's a beauty. Yeah. I've been raising it since last year. It's finally ready. Steven's smile was proud. Not bad. Let's see what it can do. Dylan chuckled, admiring but not envious. After all, no matter how flashy, it couldn't outshine his own twin-tailed dragon. Mega Metagross, let's go. Steven's keystone lit up, triggering the Mega Evolution. Metagross transformed in a blaze of light, emerging more fearsome than ever. Bullet Punch. The Mega Metagross shot forward, claws glowing. Quick Guard. Zeraora blocked with shining arms, deflecting the flurry of priority strikes. Flame Kick. Its foot erupted in fire as it lashed out. Block it. Steven ordered. Metagross crossed its arms, tanking the blow with only a shudder. Comet Punch. Its other arms swung like meteors, clipping Zeraora and staggering it. Then came a surge of psychic energy. Boom! Psychic blasted Zeraora off its feet. It tried to rise, but its injuries were too much. With a final groan, it collapsed unconscious. Dylan shook his head with a smile. Zeraora is unable to battle. Mega Metagross wins. Leaf announced the result. Steven's face broke into a triumphant grin. At last, he'd brought down Dylan's Zeraora. Finally, he could say it proudly, I once defeated one of Dylan's legendary Pokémon. Hell yeah, Steven! Wallace shouted from the stands, more excited than Steven himself. You really are my best friend. Even Dylan's legends can fall before you. That was incredible, Caitlin sighed. It had taken every ounce of effort, type advantages, tactics, a grueling war of attrition. But at last, Zeraora had gone down. Cynthia nodded sullenly in agreement. On the field, Dylan recalled Zeraora gently. You did wonderfully. Rest now. He smiled warmly at the Pokeball before looking back up. Well done, Steven. Defeating my Zeraora is no easy feat. But now, his voice softened as he sent out his next Pokémon. A small shadow pooled on the floor, and from it emerged a gray, wide-eyed Pokémon staring blankly at Mega Metagross. Marshadao. You're up. That wraps up this part of What If Transmigrated as a Kanto gym leader. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.